many of you can honestly say that when you think of the Confederate flag that it doesn't remind you of slavery? Most of us can't imagine life without pictures or seeing different races or even communicating with someone of a different race. We take advantage of our freedom. Besides being an avid studier of the Civil War and a photographer by trade, I have done research on the pros and cons of the Civil War and photography in the South. Today, I'm here to convince you that the Civil War, Confederate flag, and Southern heritage have nothing to do with slavery. First, I want to talk to you about the ways the Civil War helped build strong interpersonal relationships, yet some were torn one nation by another. Next, I'll address how the Confederate flag has been betrayed as a slavery flag. I'll discuss how the Civil War separates states along with all races. The Civil War separated whites from whites, not just blacks from blacks. It also separated the whites from the whites. Let's begin by talking about the way that the North and the South was separated. Not only the blacks from the blacks and whites from whites, but also separated us from our families. Strong interpersonal relationships. Some people argue that the Confederate flag is a game flag, a racial flag, because of the way that they were taught in history books and so on. They stereotype the flag as a nonverbal racist symbol because this was the way that the Civil War has been interpreted through history and other facts. We are beginning to find out ways to understand the Civil War by photography and just in our society alone. I'm going to show you some pictures here, and right here is a gentleman. This is a gentleman that died during the Civil War. If you notice, he was white, not a black guy. Literally half of his face was blown off. This shows how not just the blacks suffered during the Civil War, but so did the whites. I want you to see that. Pretty gruesome. Here's another picture of a lineup of the North and the South. And if you notice, you have to look closely, you have blacks and whites. This was during the Civil War. And this also shows some things that went on during the Civil War. Again, you have blacks and whites. This is an actual picture. This is more of a painting that was made to portray the Civil War. And this shows the Confederate States of America seal, 1862. And this is just something to show you how the seal was during the Civil War. We have unlimited interaction with one another in today's world versus the interaction that we had during the Civil War. We are driven as humans to communicate. It may take longer to have world peace, or better yet, we may never have world peace. But as long as we have peace within ourselves, we should be fine and also be more understanding. With the internet, it is much easier to find many views on the Civil War, and as well as pictures to explain the viewpoints. If you're interested, I have a list of websites I can give you, and I've done a lot of research on this, and I have some against the Civil War and some that are for the Confederate flag. So if you like those, I can give you those. Besides a great way to understand the South and the Confederate flag, using the internet and our history books, we can also understand the challenge that occurred then and in today's society. Number two, the second viewpoint I have is that in our workplace, you'll see that today we're more portable. We need less heresy. one person can communicate to many, like I can stand before and communicate to many no matter my color. I can communicate flow, which follows more flow and flow. Like if I tell you something, it's going to go on and on and on. So we have to be careful how we stereotype things. If I showed you the Confederate flag and I said that this is a flag of hate, you're probably going to repeat what I said, and it's going to go on and on. It's going to stop somewhere because someone's going to disagree with you. But those 100 people before you, if I told you that, they're going to think that's what it is. So we need to get the point across that it's not hate, it's heritage. The Confederate flag stands for heritage, and we need to get that across and be more effective in doing that. So we need to spread the word that it's heritage, not hate. It's a Southern heritage thing. It stands for the Southern states, and it was a heritage thing. I have a friend that just moved in next door, and he's from New Jersey. And it was really ironic because I was doing this report, and we noticed that on the front of his vehicle, and in the back window, I think it was, he had a Confederate flag, but yet he's from New Jersey. So we need to remember that it's Southern heritage. They like the South. It's not because, and they're from northern states. He even had a big tattoo of a Confederate flag on his arm. So I thought that was pretty cool, that it flows. And we're not prejudiced against that. He's in a northern state. We just know that he likes the South. He likes the way of the Southern living. The true story of the Civil War expressed through Southern photography will positively affect the way that we do business in our workplace, in our society, our churches, and different places. It will help us communicate interpersonally with our co-workers, our friends, our family. It will even affect the way that we conduct ourselves. My third point is photography in the South. You wonder why my title is Photography in the South. Informally, photography, and particularly in the South, will increase the way that we see things. More people will be involved in discussing and making the right decisions. The pictures I showed you, one had an African American on it with a Confederate flag. The Confederate flag used to be the state flag in Georgia until recently. There was a big controversy over that. And he loved his state flag. He was hugging it. He didn't see that that meant slavery. He seen that that meant heritage. And he was from Georgia, and that was his heritage. You don't have to be white to like the flag. You don't have to be black to like the flag. A lot of people use it that way, but that's not the way it is. Let's go back over what we learned today. Today, I've explained to you how the Civil War, Confederate flag, and Southern heritage can affect our lives in a positive way. First, we talked about how the Confederate flag reminds us of slavery. We also talked about how times have changed from then till now. Finally, we talked about how photography in the South will increase our way of seeing things. I encourage you to learn all that you can about the Civil War and the Confederate flag. Hopefully soon, the Civil War will be inevitably part of all of our lives. And remember, it's time to get into the information highway and learn that photography in the South is fast moving. Come aboard before you get ran over. I want to show you one other thing. This is a sample of what the state of Florida will be inducting into their line of license plate tags. I'm very proud to say that this is our first step here in the state of Florida of proving that the Confederate flag is not a hate flag. It says here it's Confederate heritage, not Confederate hate. And if you see this, you'll see the Confederate flag. I can't wait to put one of these on the front of my vehicle or the back of my vehicle. Is there any questions?
Yes, why won't schools let us wear the Confederate clothing?
Because we've been taught in the past that The Confederate flag is a hate flag, and there again it goes to gang-related things. There's other things that they won't let us wear. Hopefully, here soon, that'll change with the state of Florida taking into consideration that it's Confederate States of America and Confederate heritage, not Confederate hate. Maybe they'll let us start wearing our Confederate clothing into the schools.
Also, why do people think the Confederate flag stands for hate, not heritage?
Because in the Civil War there was slavery, and there was a lot of slavery during the Civil War. So what happens is when people look back on the Civil War, and that being the Southern flag, they instantly think of slavery. But they have to remember there was slavery before the Civil War, not just during the Civil War. Is there any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.